Hello, 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 hello. We are live in two places. I'm going to drop the link over here. I'll keep the Zoom on for now because I know most everybody has this link. But only thing is about the YouTube stream is that it doesn't let me mirror my video, which is a little bit disorienting because I'll touch my head over here and want it to fix my hair over here. It's just, hello, hello. Oh, Steffi, you would be the first person ever to come to a YouTube stream. That makes me happy. Welcome, welcome to Ask the Identity and Belonging Coach. We are officially. Oh, Stephanie, look. You see my orchids? You see my babies? They were a gift. Hello, I see Christine. Yes. Welcome, welcome. I'm curious. Let's see. Do live. Does YouTube live, since we're asking Identity and Belonging Coach, Identity and Belonging Coach can ask questions too. Does YouTube live count? See, a lot of people ask this, count as watch hours. Yes, they do, but only if the broadcast replay is saved as a public video on demand. Watch time accumulated during both the live broadcast and from subsequent replay views will count towards the YouTube Partner Program monetization thresholds. That is good to know. Keep it public. Or if you delete the video, they're instantly removed. Watch the 12-hour limit. YouTube cannot automatically archive or save live streams that exceed 12 hours. If you stream longer than that, the VOD will not generate and you will lose all those watch hours. Oh, wow. Do people actually stream? Well, yeah, I guess I know that gamers, they will stream a long ass time for sure. So I know that's a thing. Amazing. So we're here. This is super awesome. Flowers everywhere. Yeah, but if you saw the condition of some of them, you would disown me as a friend. You would. You would. I'm telling you. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for being part of my first YouTube stream of Ask the Identity and Belonging Coach. Really big step for me to finally just be like, forget it. We're going all in. Like, let's just do this thing. And I'm tempted to even right now, like, send the live stream to my mailing list just to see what people do. Should I do that? Should I send it to my mailing list just to see? Should I do that? Ooh, this is not getting clean anymore. Hey, all the glasses wearers in the room, what happens when your glasses wiper stops wiping? Yeah, I know y'all are supposed to be asking me things, but here I am asking you things. So if anybody is still here on Zoom, no problem. Just let me know if you're listening in from Zoom only and not YouTube, because then I can make sure that I look over here as well. But if you are able to hop on to YouTube, it counts towards my eventual monetization, which is pretty awesome. It's pretty cool. But welcome. So this series I started during the launch for the Identity and Belonging Coach. Listening only on Zoom. Interesting. So is everybody on YouTube? Everybody on YouTube can hear me though? Yes? Just make sure. Leave me some emojis. Tell me you can hear me. Amazing. Great. Just making sure. I figured most people could, but yeah, so the people who've been wearing glasses all their lives, why do these stop cleaning after a while? Are you supposed to wash them? Are you not supposed to wash them? I'm really new at this, so please. Oli, you can just pop off of Zoom if you want to. That's another way to do that. But yeah, the Zoom is just open because the original link that everybody had was that one. Oh, you love Zoom. I will not yuck your yum, my fam. I will not. In full transparency, I might take a nap after this because I went for a walk. I recorded a video, and it's super hot outside. Ollie, I don't know what the weather's like in Belgium right now, but woo, it is hotter than Satan's booty hole over here. And it's just so wild because I remember when summers here were very, very mild. Oh no. Yeah. It's about that. It's about 35 with the heat index because of the humidity. I think this is as clean as they're gonna get. Come on, glasses. I can wash these. Okay, good to know. Thank you. I was about to say, come on, glasses people. I need you right now. So I'm kind of looking through a little bit of a fog of a whatever here. So yeah, Ask the Identity Belonging Coach. So this series is something I started when I officially made this launch official. When I officially made this launch official, I decided to start off with one of the things that I find works really well for me, which is showing up in real time. And I love being live. I don't know, I something about being able to be in real time conversation with people, especially people that I follow, people that I'm connected to, people that I care about. Obviously, since I've been doing a lot of this on LinkedIn, it's been especially personal and especially intimate because I feel that on LinkedIn we have a really special type of connection as people because everybody's there for such similar reasons. Do a job, find a job, offer a job. I always say this when people ask me, how do I get started on LinkedIn? Or why is LinkedIn so special to build? And I was like, it's something about that pretty succinct collective purpose of work with more and more personality being infused, the more millennials uh, come in and unmask because our boomer and elder Gen X parents and siblings are not as much online, or they just, for whatever reason, are not. They just decide they're done with the internet. So now we're being more of ourselves. And I think that's great. I love that for us. So, anyway, LinkedIn has been a special place to build for the last exactly 4 years. 4 years ago, I was 26 days into my first 30 days LinkedIn challenge. And the first month on LinkedIn was really just about getting the habit of opening up LinkedIn instead of Facebook. And it worked. By the end of the month, I did 35 days instead of 30 because there were a few days that I showed up like I said I was going to, but it didn't feel like it fully counted. So I wanted to do those extra 5 days. July 2022 was just about, okay, I've got this habit. Let's see what's up. And then after that, I just decided, oh, well, great. Now I'm here. What now? And that was right around the time that Social Saturday was becoming big. So that was how I got started on LinkedIn. And I've had this. First, it was the inkling of an idea to be on YouTube maybe 3 years ago. Because my partner, we've been together 6.5 years, and he is big on YouTube. Like, he watches a lot of YouTube. And I just never I used to say, "I wanna watch more YouTube. I wanna be on YouTube," like, but as a viewer. I wanna it seems like a cool place to learn stuff and do things and see cool stuff, and I guess it turns out that by a little bit of osmosis, I was able to pick up a little bit of the YouTube habit, but not like him. I do not put in the watch hours that he does. He probably pays people's rents with the amount of YouTube he watches. Lots of drum videos, lots of recipe videos, and then our partnered obsession is this amazing channel by this young woman. She's just a little younger than me, so she's in her upper 30s as well, who lives in a compound with her family in the Yunnan province of China. And I'm going to butcher her name, but it's Dianchi Chaokogi is her name, um, and that's her nickname. Her real name is Penji, but or Apenji, and she has this amazing, beautiful lifestyle blog that is super cool. And it is so awesome to see, um, just the lifestyle aspect of what she does and her being in community with people she's known her whole life that have known her since she was a child. They trade food between each other and stuff. So that was like where I kind of caught an eye for some of the lifestyle things on YouTube. And then from there, I just basically was like, oh man, yeah, you might. She's amazing. She's really cool. I'll make sure I pass her along or share her. But yeah, Dianchi Xiaogogi is her name. And she's the biggest YouTuber in China now. She used to be the second biggest after one whose name was Lisiki, but there she had some things happen in her family and wanted to be closer to her grandmother and just kind of I think lost her spark for it. And so when she stopped creating dance, she took over as number one in China, and she is like the only vlogger that China like like literally allows to be mainstream in other parts of the world. Like I guess YouTube is strictly not strictly banned, but it's very tight. Like obviously most people know that Facebook you can't get in China, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of political things with that, but apparently one of the reasons why they kind of position her as like the YouTuber from China is because it shows the humane side of China that contradicts Western narratives, right? To get to say it, you know, PC as possible. Anyway, politics and geo and ge- and geopolitics and and the social dynamics aside, she's amazing. I love watching her, and because of that genre, now I watch a lot of vloggers throughout all of Asia. Um, from South Asia, from Central Asia, from Eastern Asia, from the Pacific, the Pacific, etc. Like I watch so many of these now because I just love the style, and I also love the idea of living off the land and cultivating and stewarding land and stewarding um, cultivating food and stewarding the land the way it was intended, honestly. Oli says, it strikes that America is now doing the same as China and Russia after blocking Cloud Fab, now blocking the late. Yeah, the latest, I don't know about ChatGPT because I stopped using ChatGPT because of all of the BS, but Claude, yeah, specifically they blocked Fable. Yeah, they blocked an entire LLM. A lot of people are really upset with it, really upset about that, which I totally get. Anyway, all of that said, YouTube has always been a distant thing for me until it wasn't. And so being on this journey and being able to just gradually be here, I know how to start a thing. I know how to start acclimating myself to the process of doing a thing. I know how to build a habit for a thing. So I'm excited because I've decided that YouTube is going to be a project where that YouTube's going to be a project where I don't want to bootstrap it. I don't want to experiment with it. I want to do it and I want to do it well. So I am looking forward to continuing to experiment and continuing to just be, oh, what is happening? Um, I look forward to experimenting and just showing up. And one of the things I want to start doing is just doing doing these lives, right? Because this is a series that I mean a lot, that means a lot to me, and I do think that this is something that could grow. I really want, as I'm doing more of the women on the street things that I have envisioned, more of the interview style things that I envision, and more of the vlogging, but in a candid way style things. I would say I was thinking today about who are all the people, the creators I've seen over my life that inspire me and that I think about when I think about what I want to build with this YouTube channel. Number one, and I mean number one, when I say number one, I mean number one is Anthony Bourdain. And I think it's really appropriate because his birthday and the anniversary of his death were both this month. I want to say his birthday was the 20th or recently. Let me double check. Yep. Whoa, yesterday. Yesterday. His birthday was yesterday. I knew it. I knew it was close. That's probably why it was on my heart, to be honest, is that I just remember thinking to myself, he is the first person that opened up a portal to the world, and painted a picture of what life was like outside of my home state, my home country, that I can remember. I remember with the guy I dated in college, like we watched Anthony Bourdain, no reservations, like every single day. Something by Anthony Bourdain we watched constantly, and I just remember being filled with wonder and curiosity in a way that I couldn't fully describe. And to be clear, I've never really had wanderlust in the true sense of the word. I've never been that person that just wants to be on a plane all the time and just having experiences and just seeing places. I realized, I realized, and I'm going to do a good YouTube video on this. I think this will be my long form for Monday, unless I can get to it tomorrow. I think it'll probably be Monday though. But I will do a video where I just am going to talk about how it's so interesting to me how personally it's not I didn't figure out what my motivation for traveling and seeing the world could ever be until I realized that my motivation are people, not places. I think my new curiosity for traveling the world is about people, not so much about places. I know that I'll see beautiful places. I know that there's so much out there in the world, and I know that, I'm gonna wish I could live everywhere. I know me. And as somebody who does have a high capacity for experiencing belonging in my own solitude and in very simple and very simple and humble company, I guess is a good way to put it. I really don't think it fully dawned on me why I'm so keen on doing a networking tour when I've never had that bug to backpack the world or be a digital nomad. Like I've never had that. I think now let me back this up. I think if I were not in the phase of life I'm in as a mother and as a partner and as someone who has built a lot of life in Spain over the past 14 years, if I were not in this phase, but I were feeling what I was feeling now, like say I didn't have a partner or a child, basically if I didn't have a family, if I were feeling the way I felt now, like imagine the pandemic had happened when I was 30, for example, instead of when I was 33, 32, and right after I met my partner, like, let me you know what? Let me put it this way. If my not met because my partner and I, we have known each other since my very first year here, the end of my first year, the beginning of my second year. But if my partner and I weren't together right before the pandemic, I think the pandemic might have deeply changed the trajectory of my life if we weren't together just before it happened. And likewise, I think the same thing if his father hadn't passed away. If his father had passed away before we got together, I think our relationship might have gone differently too. I think the capacity each of us would have had would have been a little bit different. But because it happened when we were already together, instead I was his family. I was able to show up for him in that way. And that's kind of the story of the beginning of our relationship. But the point is that if the pandemic had happened when I was younger or if I were single, I think what I'm feeling now, having had to then build online the way that we did from 2020 to 2024 or 25, I think I would right now be more keen to travel the world with a backpack and do the digital nomad thing. I think it would have been different if the pandemic had happened a few years earlier or even a few months earlier because the pandemic broke literally 3 months after the month we made 3 months together. It was crazy. Like it was almost the exact day actually now that I think about it. It was like the exact day because our anniversary is December 16th and the state of alarm went into effect on the 14th. Don't hold me on those dates. 20th, 18th, 16th. The 16th, it went into effect on the 16th, the day of our 3 months. So wild stuff. It's wild how the world works, but the flip side is I get to take my family. And we've started talking about what that could look like. So anyway, this whole thing isn't just for me to talk the whole time, but I wanted to give you all some context as to how long this YouTube journey has been in the making, because it's been in the making a while. It has been in the making for a while, and it has been heavy on my heart, the responsibility to be visible when I have managed to do so many things already on my bucket list. I feel that everybody or most people, you might take a little while to figure out what your under 30 thing was. We always think about those 30 under 30 lists, Forbes and all these other places. 30 under 30 lists, and everybody gets all salty about them like, well, it doesn't mean you can't do cool stuff after 30. No, it doesn't mean that. It's just saying that some people do really cool things at a very young age. And there were many years where I felt, oh, but there's so many things I didn't get to do before 30. It's okay. Like, there's probably a version of me in the past that thought, yeah, I wanna have kids before I wanna have all my kids on earth before 30, like, very naive, just family pattern type of things, not good or bad, just, everybody else has kids before 30, so why shouldn't I? Just like, yeah, I'm gonna be married and have kids before 30 and this, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna buy my first house, I'm gonna have my this and that, whatever. Let me start from the end. I bought my first car at age 37 a year ago because I've lived abroad since I was 24. And before that, I was only home in Chicago for 2 years and 3 months. Then I was in college and I didn't need a car really. I was dating a guy who had a car. And when I came home, I did Zipcar. And I did different I did Zipcar and one other car sharing that doesn't exist anymore in Chicago. But point is, there are lots of things that I did backwards. But then recently I was reflecting, that's so interesting though. And there's a video I'm going to post on LinkedIn today that we'll talk a little bit more about this, but we really need to stop diminishing the effort it took to get where we are because everybody has something that they've done on a freaky fast timeline that they have done with ease, that they have been able to just do with conviction and sometimes with minimal support. And that for me was moving abroad. That for me was deciding when I was a teenager that one day I will live in a Spanish speaking country to completely consolidate, to fully crystallize my bilingualism. I want to be non negotiably fluent in Spanish. I had story time, which I'll tell the full story later again, as I say, as I always say. But story time is that I started teaching myself Spanish when I was about 5 years old because my paternal grandparents lived in California. They moved to California about 5 years, I think they say, before I was born. And that beautiful story was written before I was born. So I was born into a story of my grandparents live in California, and I get to go visit them every year. And it started out once a year, and then it got more frequent the older I got. Then my mom's little brother, one of my mom's little brothers, moved out to California with his wife in the beginning of the 2000s. And I was in middle school. My grandmother didn't fly, so to visit her son, we would go every single year by train from Chicago to visit my uncle, which was super awesome. And it's a core memory for me. San Diego is really like my preteen and teenage life. It reminds me a lot of that phase of life. I also have a stepbrother that lives there and is from there. And I've had other family and friends move there over the years, but San Diego was an extension of my family space, for my immediate-ish family. And this uncle and I, like, he was 16 when I was born. He still lived with my grandma. So he's like an older brother more than an uncle sometimes. But so him moving out there was a big deal for me and my family. I would spend time with my grandparents in LA. Then I would spend time with my uncle, and then other trips when it was with my grandma, I would go out with my grandma, and then I would spend time with my cousins, my aunt and uncle. My aunt, may she rest in peace, my aunt Emily passed away, unfortunately, of cancer, a very rare form of cancer when I was pregnant with Cora, and unfortunately left my uncle and her two young boys, but they're thriving because my uncle's a fucking badass. Um, so there were times when I would go and visit my grandparents, and I'd also see my uncle and my brother. And there were other times where I would go out with my grandmother on the train because I would go years and years. I went with her, and even if the other grandkids didn't come, I often did because I'm the oldest, and she helped raise me. So we just have a different relationship. And even when I would go on the train with my grandmother, I would usually go back up to LA a couple days early to hang out with my grandparents, and then we would meet back up. And that would happen a lot of the times that I would go to other parts of California. So the third part of California was really important to me is the Bay Area, and Mama J knows this because she made sure I saw the Golden Gate Bridge for the first time in 14 years last 15 years almost. No, it was 14 years then. 14 years last March, which was awesome. But the point is that California was such an important part of my life growing up, and it's so interesting because, like, when I think about how that started me in my life with these dreams of, like, this is what I'm gonna do. There's a couple of things that life in California started, like, that started that adult me, like, finished in a way, or that I took to the next level, and one was the story that you don't have to stay in your hometown your whole life. My grandparents made that very clear. Number 2, um, was, oh my gosh, this other language. I wrote on LinkedIn a little while ago, I was like, I would hear Spanish when I was 5, 6, and with that time, space, and distance away from my regular home surroundings, I was of course, my senses were completely alert and super, just acutely aware of these new surroundings and how different they were from Chicago. The climate's different, the foliage is different, the lifestyle is different. A lot of things about California are different from the Midwest, specifically Chicago. And I just remember hearing Spanish, and it's not like I didn't hear it in Chicago, it's just it wasn't my regular life, so all of my senses were heightened. And I would hear it, and I would think, "That sounds like someplace I wanna go one day." Like, it felt like another world, it felt like another portal. That's how it felt. And I was obsessed, every time I'd hear Spanish, I'd wanna, like, see if I could pick out any words, or I would try to discern what I was hearing, or I would want to, read whole pages of words even if I didn't know what I was saying, just Y la persona que ha hecho al supermercado ha hecho, o sea, I mean, just me saying stuff, just me saying shit, not knowing what I was saying, just reading, like, la, 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 until I finally took my first official class when I was 14. And the teacher asked, she's like, "Do you have Spanish speaking family?" I was like, "No." I was confused because, from your ignorance as a Black woman from Chicago, we didn't see a lot of Afro Latinos, Afro Spaniards. Never. Didn't meet until I was here. Actually, Mark, my partner, was one of the first Afro Spaniards I met. But the point is that, Black representation in the Spanish speaking community didn't really exist for me in Chicago. So I didn't know what she was talking about. I was just like, because I had not met a Cuban yet. I had not met a Dominican yet. I had not met Afro Puerto Ricans yet. Like, now I can name somebody from every Spanish speaking country. Like, I have Black friends from every Spanish speaking country. Listen, because the only thing that's different between us is the stop on the boat. Do you hear me? Thing, the only difference between us is where the boat landed, period. And as a 15-year-old, you don't know that. So she said that, and I didn't understand, and I realized it was because I had basically been so obsessive with just reciting Spanish for no reason that I had developed, or like, I had developed a native sounding accent. Like, I did not sound like a native English speaker, so that was very interesting. But anyway, the point, all this comes back around to this concept of the 30 under 30. What is your 30 under 30? I know what my 30 under 30 was. It was like, for me, my under 30 accomplishment was, I told myself when I was about 12 years old that one day I would live in a Spanish speaking country for an indeterminate amount of time until I felt non negotiably fluent in the language. I didn't want to feel like I had to search for the words, or that I had, you know, and it wasn't until I learned Catalan when I moved to Barcelona in 2020. It took me just under 2 years to learn, because having a baby will really accelerate that process. First of all, the pandemic will really exacerbate it because, we were in our small town a lot of the time, and every time I would go to the market, I was just building on my vocabulary, building and building on my vocabulary, and making a whole fool out of myself in front of all these people. Some people were like, "Oh, okay, whatever." I'm just like, that's real rich coming from people who say that their language is dying. You should probably be helping me learn it, right? But most people were just, again, it's a language that is from one particular region of Spain. There are dialects of it that exist in other regions that are very similar, that come from a similar root, but it's only spoken in this region. So most people, say the vast majority of people, very much appreciate that, we don't just default to Spanish and say, well, everybody speaks Spanish. A lot of people do that. I don't believe in that. If it's your language, I want to know it. If it is your lived experience, I want to hear about it. And if this is a story that I can hear and understand best from your native language, I'm going to do my best to learn that language so that I can hear it from your perspective and not have to filter it through mine. So, what I think is really interesting in my reflections over the last year, 2 years, especially as I develop more and more coaching frameworks to support people, it's this idea that, you know, when you realize that you actually have done a lot of things, like, what's your under 30 accomplishment that you're most proud of? For those that are in their 30s, what's your under 40 accomplishment that you're super proud of? If you're in your 40s, what is your under 50 or under 40 project that you're super proud of? And so on and so on. And when you think about all of those things, it it really helps you put into perspective, wow, if I could do that, I could do anything. That first. And then after that, it really helps you to really, like, go easier on yourself and honor yourself more and recognize yourself more for the things that you do and for the person that you become, in spite of the hard things, maybe the things you're still working towards, the things you still want to do, the things you still want to be. But also realizing, like, damn, I did that. I moved to a foreign country at 24 by myself. I rescued two little kittens and raised them into advanced adulthood. One passed away suddenly when I was pregnant with my daughter. She was almost 9. And the other is alive and kicking and complaining about a lot of things, but she's happy. And she's 13. She'll be 14 this year. I opened my first brick and mortar business on my 30th birthday, and I won an award from a university for that. And I learned my third language in under 2 years, which is the instance that confirmed that it was not a fluke. that I, in fact, have a gift for learning languages. And anytime I decide to learn a language, anytime I put my heart and my mind to it, I know how to do it. I know how to do it. And I think for me personally, who I am, that is a really cool thing to know about myself. It's a really awesome thing to be like, yeah, yeah, I can learn any language I want if I decide to. They'll take me more or less time. But if I want to learn Japanese, I'll learn Japanese. It's funny I say that because I'm deciding between Mandarin, Japanese, and Korean. I did start Korean. I can learn, I can read the Korean alphabet. Took me just under 3 months to learn Hangul, which is cool. It's cool to be able to look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, I can read that. Oh man, it's really fun. But I'm not fully connecting to Korean. So I have to decide. And then when I think about learning Mandarin, it's hard for me to get over the fact that everybody sees it as like, oh yeah, that's a useful thing you can work. And I'm just like, what if I don't want to learn it just to work? I used to feel the same way when people would say, oh yeah, Spanish is the most useful. Don't learn French. Don't do like I did. Learn Spanish because it's more useful in the US. You know what I mean? Any language is useful, depends on what you decide to do with your life, you know? That's what it decides. So, all of this said, I want to open it up to questions. This isn't at the end of the day an ask me anything session. So I want to know what what questions do you have? It can be about my life, anything I've talked about today. It can be about something you are navigating in your life. It can be about whatever you want. Ask me anything. What do you got? And if you're watching the replay, ask me anything down in the comments. I'll do my best to come back to them. For now, while I don't have a lot of followers on this platform, on this platform, I will probably not miss a lot. But if and when, universe willing, I do get to that point, might have to keep it to the live stream on the actual platform. But for now, I think I'll always remember this day. My first YouTube live stream. Just do it perfectly and perfectly. And that I sat here with 4 of my friends and just yapped. Just yappa, 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 yappa. And it started just like this, calmly, quietly, and surely. I have put on 50 followers in like a week and a half, which is cool. Most of that first wave are people that I've invited directly. So the algorithm may not be able to do its thing until more of the same people are doing it, are like people who all care about the same thing. But until then, until then, I won't be able to really see. Let me see this. Yeah, until then, I won't be able to really see. Sorry, just deleting this other stream. Yeah, so I won't really be able to see so much of the fruit of this labor um, until more people that like the same things or that come to me for similar reasons. So I've been silently studying the YouTube game from afar a little bit, and I am doing a program in July that's going to be very helpful in it's going to be very helpful in wrapping my head around just what I want my strategy to be in this phase of life. And the thing is, for those of you that know me, because I also have my own program, one of the things um, about even my own content strategy, the way that I teach people is the rule of 1, 2, 3 when it comes to content. So one primary platform, which is ideally the platform you're making most of your money on, where you get most of your followers, your best leads, your best clients, where you have the most interaction, where you have the largest network, et cetera. That's usually your primary. And then there's 2 secondaries. And one secondary, when you're first starting, should lead back to the primary. So it's like a calling card or like a teaser or a trailer for the long form that you do, or the longer form, or just the more serious place you are. So one example, which is very common on Skool, the platform that I create for, is Instagram to YouTube, right? Instagram is a short form, like tease a little bit of what you're talking about, what you wanna say, what you wanna do, etcetera, like all of that, and sending people to the long form, and from the long form, in my framework, we bring you then like your second secondary is to capture information and bring it to another secondary, which is at that point you own the data, you own the information, right? So in that example, that for me could be a mailing list. It in my case could be Skool because I do have people on Skool that they see the content, they engage, they interact, and over the course of time will likely purchase something if it's within their price range or if I'm not everybody will, but most of your best leads come from where you places where you have a direct interaction with your audience, right? So um, for me, the other thing I always tell people is that if you have a primary that's very robust and you make a lot of your income from there, or you source a lot of your leads, even if they eventually end up on a secondary platform, like in my case, where a lot of people come from Skool and join, or sorry, come from LinkedIn and join my Skool, or come from LinkedIn and join my mailing list. Even in those cases, if I want YouTube to eventually be my principal, which I have a very strong feeling it will be by the end of 2027, that's my goal. I do think my first million is going to come from going to come from YouTube. I do think that's the case. But I don't think that means I'm going to stop earning on LinkedIn. It just means that YouTube will probably eventually surpass LinkedIn. So for me, of course, my reasons for wanting to break into the seven figures and maybe over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, 8 figures, it's because of all the cool stuff I want to do for people, because of stewarding and generating and stewarding generational wealth, and community care and all of these different things. So I have absolutely no qualms about my financial goals, absolutely no qualms about where I am going economically, where I'm going influentially, and where I'm going professionally, because I know I trust money in my hands, because I know what resources do when they are in my corner. And the best way to say that is when they are in my corner, they end up in your corner one way or another, and it's not about, you know, it's not about handouts, it's not about charity, it's not about this. It just means how can I facilitate or help build a bridge in the direction of what you need in order to get to your next level, the same way so many people have done for me over the last just 4 years. If I only use the last 4 years as an example, already you all know. I mean, most people in this thread right now during the live stream, I've met on LinkedIn. And I started this journey 4 years ago, like I said in the beginning of this video, with my 3-month-old in my arms on my boob, really, and just was like, well, here goes nothing. Like, because I literally have nothing. I don't have any that whole lot of money saved up. I had a bunch of baby shower money that we were using to support having a newborn, and I had closed up on my like tied up my ends way too tightly and didn't have any client prospects except one who is still a client to this day. Shout out to Terry Chofalo, because it was with her that the framework that inspired the academy that I opened through my company, Ola Magnolia Identity Works, the Rise Changemakers Academy. The Rise framework actually exists, and it's a framework that I started using it for leaders, especially higher education leaders, especially executive leaders and senior leaders in companies that wanted to develop inclusive leadership skills and what we now know as belonging, like this belonging wave of people using the word belonging wrong, but that's another conversation. Point though is that, if I want YouTube to eventually be my principal platform, you got to just start. You got to just start. So far, I'm doing things that don't take me too far out of my zone of genius, except for editing videos. But there'll be something coming up in the next few days that I'm super excited about that will help us to seed this project the way that I truly envision, and that's an exciting prospect. But aside from that, I really felt compelled to finally just start, to stop looking for the right date on the calendar and the perfect, although it is a great weekend, right? Older Magnolia's company anniversary is the 28th. The 27th into the 28th is the night that my cousin Stacy showed me those magnolias that were by my house the whole time, which I'll tell that story on camera at some point. I think it's important to tell that story. And yeah, that was 2018. That was June 27th into the night of June 27th into the 28th of 2018. And we officially incorporated Ola Magnolia in 2023, the second edition of the reparations race. And Yeah, even since then, it's been 3 years this coming Sunday, right at the full moon in Capricorn, which is my moon. It's also Mama J's moon. But, yeah, just yeah, it's just it's been a journey. I see Christine says she had an under 30 accomplishment was graduating from community college, small but mighty, a pandemic achievement as well, but super proud. You should be super proud. You should be super proud because I know you and I have talked about generational stories and family stories, and you should be super proud. Mhm. You should. Yeah. Would anybody like to ask me anything? Anybody? I think in the live stream, I don't see anybody else here. I'm just gonna check and see. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the regular stream now. Cool. So I'm just staying here on YouTube. Cool. Nice, nice. Oh, that's good news. Yeah, any questions, reflections? My pandemic story. Yeah, it's the my pandemic story is very interesting because yeah, one thing I will say is that I wasn't right at the brink of burnout, but I definitely if I'd have kept going at the rate that I was going in music, I think I would have perpetuated another cycle of just singing and dancing for people and their entertainment rather than for my own creative fulfillment. And I remember having a long string of gigs booked, not just at the place that I was a regular, that I was a townie and regularly sold out the house, although I was a hometown artist, which is quite rare. If anybody knows the music industry, it's very, very precarious many times to book to book um it's really tricky to book gigs in your hometown because you can't do too many of them because people get comfortable. And they're like, oh, well, I'll go to the next one. Oh, well, I'll go to the next one. Oh, well, I'll go to the next one, which is tricky for people who do jam sessions and stuff. But it is when you have a special connection with your community, or you're somebody like me who also like risked it all and did a different set almost every time, which my musicians hated me for, but I also paid them more for it. So I would like to think that they forgave me. But it's it was one of those things where I was starting to be like, okay, is this what I want to keep doing? It's cool for the attention, but it would be better if I would actually do something with this. So I was starting to contemplate. It's probably time to record an album, but it was starting to feel like forced. Like if I recorded something, it was going to be something that didn't fully represent me. Meanwhile, Mark and I started dating in December of 2016. We started talking in that way in November, not 16. What am I saying? 2019. In November, right after a really big gig where I had just, broken up with this really gross Dutch guy that was super narcissistic, a horrible cheater, alcoholic, everything you can name. He was terrible. He was terrible. And I don't care who sees this. But anyway, the point is, I was dating this guy and broke up at the end of September. Thought I was going to be fucked up longer. I wasn't. In fact, it gave me a lot of power and I felt really liberated right before my 32nd birthday. And I have life cycles that go in 4-year cycles. So I was about to open and like close and then subsequently open up a new cycle of life at 32. So I was very like, I was just amped. I was so ready. I was so ready for this. And so I I was feeling really good. Then Mark and I started talking in that dating direction. As I mentioned, we had been friends since the end of my second year in Spain. So we had been friends for 7 years already. So when he and I started dating, and it was very picture storybook. It was really sweet actually, because we have very compatible courtship styles. Like he's the wait until like I am 100% sure this girl likes me, and I'm like I'm not waiting for no dude. So like it worked out really well. It worked out really well. And so essentially, fast forward, like I told you, all the pandemic broke in March, and 2 weeks after that, his father passed away suddenly, and he didn't have COVID. It was just an accumulation of his own things. I think his body was just like, I'm not going through this. I don't want this risk, right? And we really think it was just his time. His time. He was just like, whatever, I'm done. And Mark said that he had had some conversations with him about like, I want you to wrap your head around your head, yeah, wrap your head around the idea that I will not be here forever. And he thought he was being kind of cynical, but yeah, like Mark had decided to go home for a little bit to decide if he was going to go move somewhere else or whatever. This was right before we were dating because he had just broken up with someone that he had been with for 10 years. Maybe it had been a year and a half or so when he and I were dating. And um, anyway, fast forward back to the beginning of the pandemic. And at first, when it broke, see, I love being in my house, especially my last house in Madrid. I loved it. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. And it was like, I consider this to be like, if I have a bachelorette pad in my memory, in my like young adult pre-baby experience, it was this house, 100%. I chose it. I really went out on a limb for it. I had to fight for it because I'm a freelancer. So that means that, they look at us sideways like we don't have, permanent contracts. And I'm like, first of all, permanent contracts don't mean that people pay their rent. That's the first thing. Second of all, I make more money than a lot of people with permanent contracts. This is ridiculous. It's just, the way people are with freelancers pretty much everywhere in the world. So point being, that house was hard fought and it was hard won. And when the roommate that I originally had decided to leave 5 months in, I decided I was going to take over the lease on my own. And it was a tricky adjustment, but I made it happen. I made it happen. Okay. And so that second year when Mark and I were together was really blissful because I loved my house. And then, my boyfriend from Barcelona was coming to visit me, older man, and all this stuff that I thought was cool at the time. But the point is that when the pandemic broke, like, we didn't know when we were going to see each other again. And I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. And I was renting out my second room to someone who really needed it at the time, a good friend who's a musician in Madrid. And then the pandemic broke, and even she decided to go to her mom's house. Her mom had passed away years before, but there was a house that she and her brothers had inherited. And she had decided after this one disagreement that we had, which was very minor, it was just in that moment she realized, like, I was kind of fluttering around my house because I was like, oh my gosh, like all the stuff I did, I know I should be stressed that all of this stuff just canceled. I know I should be stressed that I don't know what's the next time I'm going to make money. But oh my gosh, the idea that every excuse to leave the house, everything that forced me to leave the house, like is gone. I can stay in the house, this house that I love, right? It was, dare I say, the most autistic thing that I think I could have thought in that moment, which was like, oh my God, I don't have to go outside. I don't have to see anybody. This is amazing. And I remember being deeply, deeply appreciative of not having to see people for a long time, even though I didn't know when I was going to see my partner. And I was good for like a week. And then his father died, and it just killed the mood because then I felt like, oh no, I need to know, like, what are we going to do? Are you going to come here? Do I need to go there? Like, it was a whole thing. So there was about a week of like uncertainty, but it was just like, because his father got sick at the end of the first week of the pandemic. And I was working on this project called Adopt an Artist. Like, it was like this very similar to the reparations race, but all artists trying to help people get funding or like just basically trying to like pep talk people into asking for what they needed for the pandemic. Because me, I'm fine. Like, I had done so many crowdfundings. I had done so many GoFundMe's. I had done an Indiegogo when I moved to Madrid. I mean, me asking my ask wound, like, you would think it's. I'm not going to say my ask wound like didn't exist. It was just I was good at powering through it, I guess is a good way to put it. And so I really wanted to empower artists to ask for what they need because so many of us had gigs cancel. So many of us were not teaching lessons online. It was like, okay, find your students, find some donors, find some remote job. And there were a lot of folks that had jobs where they weren't going to teach, but they were still getting paid. So I was trying to encourage them to find the artists in your life and see if there's a way you can contribute to a fund for them or help them, support them with a gift of some sort. It was very reparations race. This is like my pre-reparations race project. And then Mark's father got sick and died within 6 days. It was literally, I mean, it was insane. It was like the last couple of days, he couldn't even go to the hospital because he spiked a fever. And because it was so early in the pandemic, they had to close everything up. Like they couldn't let him have contact with him until they knew if he had COVID or not. And he died before they got the test results and they came back negative, unfortunately. So, that was really sad. And the day that he called me, I just knew. I was like, I just knew in my heart that he wasn't gonna make it. I knew in my heart that he wasn't gonna make it. And I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe this actually happened this way. It was kind of like the beginning of me understanding some of these claircognizant things I got going on here. And so I just tried to hold him and show up for him as much as I could from a distance. And I don't remember what day that we had a conversation and we decided, you know what, maybe I should spend the rest of the pandemic with you. His birthday was coming up in April and I was just alone in my house with my cats, literally. And so we looked at all of the regulations. Spain had one of the most strict lockdowns. Like we literally weren't even allowed to go out to the like we weren't even allowed to like go for a walk or go around the block or you know what I mean? Like you had to have a special reason to go to the grocery store. You had to I remember the time I went to the center of the city to a specific pharmacy and to a specific grocery store. It felt like I don't know. It's hard to explain. I don't know, it felt a little apocalyptic, like, if the way that we sensationalize the apocalypse, like, that's what it felt like. It was just so strange to see no one in the streets. So strange, everybody's in masks, the people you do see. You go in the pharmacy, suddenly there's a bunch of people, or you walk into it was like speakeasy vibes, like, you would walk into a one place that was open, and you're like and everybody's there. Um in Barcelona, at least once I got here, like, you could go to restaurants to eat, but that's literally it, like, you could only go to the grocery store. You go out if you was sure, like, you were going to the grocery store, it looked like you were going to the grocery store. You had to prove you were going to the grocery store somehow or had just come back. Um, and then the same thing with pharmacies, like, you had to show your pharmacy receipts, like, you had to show you were going to the doctor, like, all this kinda stuff. It was very, very strict. It was not like in the US. So, I think it took about 3 weeks for us to decide like, a week after his father passed away, we decided it was probably a good idea for me to go to Barcelona, so we got all our ducks in a row. I got, the death certificate and all of these things, and as I was working on the adopt an artist thing, that didn't fully take off, but I was making enough noise to the point where I had a lot of people either reach out for lessons or simply just make contributions, so because I had that piece, I was able to help other people a little bit more. And so I, got up to and I was able to teach very chill. And then as you all know, this was 2020. So right at the end of May, so let me back up. I went, just we decided to go. So when I decided I was gonna go, we had made my ticket for like I think it was like maybe 3 weeks out. So I still had two like really blissful weeks in my apartment, just like me by myself, because we had the plan for me to go. We had the plan, we knew what we were gonna do. So I was able to just like be in my house for a little while. And the plan was also to take my cats, obviously, and I had to show the birth certificate, the death certificate of his father, and all these things just to make sure I would be safe to go. And in the meantime, I made this group on Facebook that I think is still exists. It's called "While We Wait, We Create" is what it was called originally. And so it's like, well, we don't know what's going on, so let's show me what you're making, y'all. Like, what are you building? What are you making? Again, you can see these themes. I've always been the same person. I just have more strategy now, you know. So. I think what was very interesting is that, once I got to Barcelona, I could feel that this was different because it wasn't too long into when I got here that we decided, I took the train, my cat's on my back, got here, and I was like, this is really surreal. And it was very weird to be there without his father. But, it was the beginnings of us being like, well, he was going to move to Madrid at the end of that year. And I decided in the end, not I decided, but we decided together, well, you just inherited this apartment outright. You don't have rent or a mortgage. Might make more sense for me to come here because already when his father got sick, we weren't sure what was gonna happen. This was before I got that really clear download that he wasn't gonna make it. And I was like, "Well, I mean, if we have to change the plan and I need to move to Barcelona, like, I can look at the town over or whatever, I can get my own apartment, like, I don't" you know what I mean? I can be closer, I'm happy to be closer because it felt like family, so it was like, "Okay, this feels like something we need to do as a family," because we don't know what his father's gonna need, and we knew Mark probably didn't need to move over, didn't need to be that far from him, and he might be incapacitated in some way. And in the end, when he passed away, like, I mean, either way, it still was just like, okay, you don't need to be that far away. But already the trajectory of our relationship was going in that direction. Like, we already had talked about him coming to Madrid the following fall before the pandemic hit. So this was just the natural flipping of that plan of me going to Barcelona instead. And as fate would have it, I had been wanting to move to Barcelona since my first year here. So it's just I never had an opportunity and I never had the right reason to come. And it's actually something for a whole nother video. It's very different to find opportunities in a place like Barcelona where there's a whole nother layer of culture, a whole nother layer of norms, a whole nother layer of like social dynamic that it's very hard to permeate as somebody from outside, whether you're outside the language, like it's much easier if you have family or if you know somebody here. So of course, when I came here with Mark, everything was much easier than if I had tried to do that before. And not only was it much easier, but it was like "Oh, wow." Like, it wasn't just easier, it was like, "Oh, this was the way I was always meant to come." And as somebody who I got my residency on my own, weird. I got my residency on my own. I didn't get married for a residency or anything like that. It was one of those things we joked about. It was just like, "Okay, all I ask you, please don't ask me to marry you before I get this freaking residency because I worked really hard to not have to marry no man to get this." So anyway, long story short is that, when I moved here, I did work at the school he worked for a little while, and it was cool to just kind of get my bearings in Barcelona, but also see this is where I was always supposed to be in Spain. This was always supposed to be my permanent address in Spain. And, that the way I got here was very eventful and very sad what catalyzed the move here. But it was very clear very early on that this was the move. This was always the way that I was supposed to come. And now having a child who's born and raised in Barcelona is just like, again, that's one of my under 40 things. It's just like, well, I had the daughter I always wished I was growing up. Trilingual from birth, two musician parents, lived by the sea. Like, what? So it was later in 2020 that I did my first consulting gig as a DEI practitioner after, at that point, 7 years of my own thought leadership, of my own like independent studies, some collaborations and things like that after I had done my first DEI position as the grad assistant in Berkeley in 2012 and 2013. So, and that was, of course, the root of all the George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor uproar that year and all of the performative DEI that came as a result. And that's towards the end of that year is when I decided to get my first non-music specific coaching credential, and that's pretty much that's kind of what's catalyzed all of this thing. I think all of that process, plus being pregnant with my daughters, what led me to the door of LinkedIn, and from there, you all know a lot. But yeah, the pandemic catalyzed me by really pushing me in the direction of two things that I had been talking about for a long time that I wanted for myself, which was number one, to live in Barcelona, which again, never ever would have guessed that it would be through a partner and suddenly because of a death in the family. Um, and um, I also didn't like know like the other thing that I was really starting to feel pulled to was being location independent in some way, like my work not depending on where I lived. And the pandemic hit and I suddenly had to teach online. So there was no choice. So by the time I did do my coaching credential, it really, I don't know, it just all started to click. It all started to click and it all started to make a lot of sense. And because of that, it was so much easier for me to just always do the next right thing. I'm not saying there weren't moments in between that I didn't, it wasn't like, what the hell am I doing? Or what is my coaching niche? Or who do I actually help? Or what would I even write about if I were online? And it became really clear that one of the things I write about is just being and becoming and the concept of belonging. But also, I was very passionate about justice and very passionate about Black identity and what that looks and feels like from place to place. And I had a project that I started on that back in 2014 that I had to park because I didn't have the funds to finish it. And I didn't want to go back and do a PhD at that time. But I've everything that I've ever cared about publicly on LinkedIn and otherwise, the seeds of that have been present with me for a really long time. Even if I just think about my journey in Spain in 14 years, like there's been moments all through this that I have either found the seed packet of something I was meant to do or something I was passionate about or really wanted to do, or something that would consolidate something I already had or already knew. Or I would find the place that I was meant to do that thing or that I was meant to, experience that thing. So it's definitely been an eventful journey, and even if I think of the last 4 years in LinkedIn, which basically picks up from the story I just told from the pandemic to everything that you all have witnessed, yeah, I think it gave me the right context. Every single step brought me closer to the people that I would eventually be doing the work I'm doing now with, and I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, so it's YouTube in a way is just carrying on that same pattern. One of the good cycles, we talk about a lot about breaking cycles and breaking patterns, but we don't always talk enough about protecting the cycles that do work and protecting the patterns of yours that do work. And one of mine is definitely following the signs. I'm really good at that. I'm really good at navigating my own life for sure. I'm very good at that. And if I don't jump, it's because I'm not ready or I'm not sure. But once I am, I jump. I do. Well, lovely. We are right under 60 minutes streaming, so super exciting. I went over a little bit just to get a full stream, but thank you all for being here. And I'll be here next Friday, same time, same place, 11 a.m. Central US time, 6 p.m. Central European time. And I look forward to seeing you all then. Bye.